Yo, what is going on, guys? I hope you're all having a great day today because today we're taking a look at some more gaming journalism, and more specifically a gaming journalist who tries to convince us that frame rates and resolution do not matter. Because how dare us expect a certain level of quality when we go out and are now spending $80 on video games in some instance? Just lower your standards and accept anything. Now, you can make a case that games are still enjoyable despite having a bad frame rate, but you shouldn't sit here and defend the bad frame rate. Like, Bloodborne for me is one of my favorite games, but the 30 FPS does harm the game, and the game would be an objectively better experience at 60 FPS. You can acknowledge a bad frame rate while still enjoying a game. There is no reason to defend bad frame rates and resolutions. If a game is good, frame rate really doesn't matter. I mean, who the hell are you to tell people what does and doesn't matter in the video game that they spent their money on? Yes, a game can be good with a bad frame rate, but a good game with a good frame rate is even better. I would probably give Bloodborne like an 8 out of 10, maybe an 8.5 when it comes to a score, but you know what would bump that up to 9? Doubling the frame rate. And sometimes the performance, even on a really good game, is so bad that the game is simply unenjoyable for a lot of people. I mean, look at Monster Hunter Wilds. That game runs like absolute fucking sludge. The core gameplay is really good, but a lot of people simply cannot enjoy it. It seems that the hotly anticipated spacebound Elder Scrolls successor, Starfield, will be locked to 30 frames per second on Xbox Series blah de blah platforms. Apparently 60 frames per second was possible, but 30 was chosen to ensure complete consistency. And to that I say one simple thing. Fine, if the game is good, the frame rate doesn't matter. Okay, so this is like an older article. Alright, well the game came out, and I can say that the 30 FPS cap definitely hurt the game, especially in the sections where you'd be doing first-person shooting. It was very hard to aim with the 30 FPS cap, and I don't really think the game was quote-unquote good. I think it was mid. Also, I find it funny that they had to lock it to 30 for quote-unquote consistency because they updated the game to run at 60 FPS and it's pretty consistent, proving that they just didn't want to optimize the game on time. Now, I can feel all the hardcore gamers winding up to post absolutely furious comments telling me to take the L and that I'm bending the knee, or some other such absolute nonsense. But anyone with half a brain only needs to look at the facts to see that blindly raging every time something doesn't reach 60 FPS is ridiculous, because some of the best games this year run at a frame rate lower than that. Two great examples immediately spring to mind, with The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom probably being the most prominent example. Okay, there's quite a bit I want to say here. Are you really upset that people might say that you're quote-unquote bending the knee when you're literally accepting the frame rate standard that was set in like 2005 on the Xbox 360? Yes, you're bending the knee. We were supposed to be at 60 FPS back in 2013 with the launch of the Xbox One and PS4. Also, you then claim it's ridiculous for people to be upset that games don't run at 60 FPS because some of the best games this year run at a lower frame rate. That doesn't change the fact that those games are running below the industry standard that was set back on the Xbox One/PS4. Then you bring up Tears of the Kingdom, one of the first Switch games to go up to $70. And you defend the frame rate on it. May I remind you guys that the frame rate on that game drops down into the teens, on a game we are expected to pay $70 for. I'm not even saying Tears of the Kingdom is a bad game, I had some fun playing it, but let's not act like it has good performance. The recent Zelda games are a great discussion point with regard to this sort of thing, because when both Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom came out, they really highlighted the existence of people who don't understand the concept of a game having a specific art style and mode of presentation. These people criticized the Zelda games for not being as detailed as something like, say, Horizon, saying that they had bad graphics. The problem with Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom is despite having a very cartoony art style, the games still run very, very poorly. Also, Horizon looks great, yes, but it's fucking boring, so who cares? This is, as anyone who has played either Breath of the Wild or Tears of the Kingdom knows, bollocks. Both of them are lovely looking games that make good use of their distinctive art style, and where their respective game worlds are full of life, interesting things to see, and plenty of things to do. Compare and contrast with umpteen photorealistic open world games in which there's a field full of rocks and mud and fuck all to do in it, and you'll see the issue. Yeah, I completely fail to see what this has to do with performance. Interestingly, when Tears of the Kingdom came out, I didn't see much mention of frame rate at all, because it's been well established that 60 FPS isn't something we should expect from Zelda. Indeed, even beyond the two Switch games, the Zelda series has never run at a high frame rate outside of its early 2D incarnations, and it's never mattered. Yeah, but older Zelda games at least ran at a somewhat consistent frame rate, like a locked 30 FPS, and not a 30 FPS cap that dips into the teens. Also, you gotta love the defense of, oh well, performance in the past was shit, so we gotta be okay with it being shit forever. Imagine if we were still playing games in 480p and people said, well, we played on 480p in the past, so who cares? It's the same sort of logic. The Switch in general is the poster boy for how silly this whole argument is, because while it's been long regarded as underpowered in relation to even the PS4 and Xbox One, it remains astonishingly popular, particularly in its native Japan. Despite all the calls from Western fanboys who want to see a Switch Pro or full-on successor, Nintendo, at present, has precisely zero incentive to provide that because the Switch itself is still selling ridiculously well despite its supposed shortcomings, suggesting that those shortcomings aren't really such a big deal after all. I mean, you just gotta love the irony of this guy calling anyone else a fanboy while he runs damage control for Daddy Nintendo. Why, of course, yes, we're the fanboys and not the guy trying to excuse the performance of a game that drops down to like 19 FPS. Obviously. The second example is Final Fantasy XVI, certain to be one of the biggest games this year. The recent demo release, along with all footage that has been released so far, shows that this plays at a solid 30 frames per second in its default graphics mode. And you know what? That's also absolutely fine. The game looks great, has clearly been well optimized to run at this frame rate, and plays brilliantly, yeah, for 2005 standards. Its cinematic scenes are some of the most beautifully directed in the series, and all real time, while its in-game sequences look fantastic and are also fully interactive. Interestingly, again, in the run-up to the release of Final Fantasy XVI, and even after the demo released, I haven't seen a single person complain about the frame rate, although granted, for the sake of my own sanity, I haven't been specifically looking for it. It's almost like it doesn't matter at all, because it doesn't. Ah yes, it doesn't matter because this journalist says so. You gotta love how their reasoning for why it doesn't matter is because, well, it just doesn't. Like, duh. There are, of course, situations where 60 FPS is a worthwhile thing to pursue. You mean like a PlayStation 5 game like Final Fantasy XVI? Shoot 'em ups and fighting games particularly benefit from it, as do driving games. Even outside of the perceived responsiveness that a slick frame rate provides, there is a distinctly arcade-style feeling to any game that runs super smoothly. That is something I can completely understand developers of games with more arcade-like tendencies pursuing, because it helps create a very specific and very game-like feel, and it can work well. But it's by no means essential. Well, maybe not for you, but you don't speak for the entire gaming community. I've played racing games, fighting games, and shoot 'em ups that run at 30 FPS or below. Hell, I still like Star Fox on Super NES, and how long ago did the NES come out again? And that has a frame rate that would be described as woeful by modern standards, and still had an absolutely great time. As with everything else, it's all about if the game is actually good, nothing else matters, and no, being sub 60 FPS doesn't automatically make a game not good. It makes the performance not good, Frame rate is one of those things where if you spend all your time complaining about it, you'll never get around to actually enjoying some truly brilliant games. I can't say for certain how Starfield is going to turn out, but Tears of the Kingdom is already a Game of the Year contender at less than 60 FPS, and it's more than likely Final Fantasy XVI is going to follow suit. Also, I'm not a big fan of Bethesda open world games in general, but everything seems to suggest that Starfield is probably going to be one of their most impressive games to date, regardless of the frame rate. Yeah, that didn't age well. So stop your moaning, close Twitter for once, preferably delete your account, you'll have a much nicer time in your daily life, believe me, and go actually enjoy some video games. I hear there are some pretty good ones out there these days. And that is the article, man. Basically, don't question why you're buying a game at $70 and getting 360 level frame rate. Just consume the product and stop complaining. If you guys enjoyed this video, make sure to leave a like. If you didn't, leave a dislike and a mean comment, and I'm out.